is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, you know, it's not cynical. It's common
My
sense.
homework is
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
Monday, and welcome to it. 6 after the hour. It's the Steve Gruber Show. I appreciate your support. Follow it at stevegruber.com, or you can click the Listen Live button, take us to work wherever you may travel. You can also find us on Radio Pup. Radio Pup is a free app for your smartphone. Download the app. Look for the flagship station, WJIM. And bam, there you are, Radio Pup. And you can get a live feed wherever you go. Also on stevegruber.com, you can get the podcasts. The podcast will be there for you. So any interview you hear, or actually any part of the program, can be replayed in its entirety or just for educational purposes, whatever you need. The phone number, 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. This morning from the Wall Street Journal, President Barack Obama's appearance at the United Nations this week is essentially his last opportunity to use the high-profile global platform to press his foreign policy agenda, which is facing new challenges, to say the least, as he enters his final year in office. Thankfully, increasingly complex dynamics in a volatile Middle East will test Mr. Obama while he tries to advance his longer-term policy goals on issues such as global development and, of course, the ever-present climate change debate. Because I'm sure Vladimir Putin's sitting in the Kremlin right now concerning himself with climate change. I'm sure as Vladimir Putin is arming mechanized divisions to go into Syria, he's concerned about climate change. I'm sure Vladimir Putin is concerned about rising ocean levels as he makes a deal with Iran and Syria and puts together a power player situation in the Middle East. I'm sure he is deeply concerned about whether or not the planet is 1 or 2 degrees warmer 100 years from now. I'm sure this must keep him awake at night. The president, Obama that is, also trying to find a way for the U.S. to fit in the Middle East and trying to find a situation where we can help with the migrant crisis spawned by Syria's civil war. The president will address the General Assembly today, a speech that will serve as a roadmap for how he intends to approach the remaining 16 months of his term. Look for him to bring a white flag. He's also going to expect to appear next autumn, but by then it'll be, well, just a few months left, and he'll have little to talk about at that point. Vladimir Putin also scheduled to address the UN today. And the Middle East will be central to the U.S. and Russian leaders' high-stakes talks on the sideline. But Mr. Obama's schedule in New York from yesterday through tomorrow reflects a president looking to make strides in other areas. Yesterday, he addressed a UN meeting on global development concerns after having lunch with his sister, Alma, at his hotel, a sister we've never heard of. Isn't it interesting? All previous presidents, you knew who their brothers or sisters, everybody was. Not this one. Ever heard of Alma? Obama, if that's even her last name. Mr. Obama urged other wealthy nations to contribute more to such issues, particularly the refugee crisis, because clearly America, in his estimation, doesn't take in enough refugees and illegal aliens and legal immigrants. We suffer no illusions of the challenges ahead, he said, but in doing so, we recognize that our most basic bond, our common humanity, compels us to act. He said global development issues will be part of his work after he leaves office in January 2017. Work. Yeah, right after he gets off the golf course. I'm sorry. Hard work is not something he's particularly well acquainted with. Unfortunately, that's the truth. Appearing yesterday on CBS's Face the Nation, Republican presidential candidate John Kasich took on the critics of John Boehner after Boehner announced his resignation as Speaker of the House on Friday, much to the surprise of pretty much everyone. John Kasich, who served alongside John Boehner, of course, they're both from Ohio. They worked closely together back in the 90s. Kasich demanding to know from people, what have you accomplished? Here's part of what he had to say. All right, then. Well, I guess we don't have that. A lot of people are doing some complaining, he said. Why isn't anything getting done? Maybe they ought to look in the mirror. Kasich, who served with Boehner in the House for 10 years, said his fellow Ohio Republican is a real reformer who got things done during his congressional tenure. And I guess where do we go from here? Let me tell you something. I'm glad to see John Boehner go. And I hope that we're trading the devil we know for the devil we don't. And hopefully the devil we don't is one that we need. Hopefully Kevin McCarthy is somebody who can get the job done. He's the odds-on favorite to get the Speaker of the House position going forward. And hopefully he can change the conversation. And it does change the tone and tenor of the campaign going towards November of 2016, because the agenda will change. And now there are calls for Mitch McConnell to also step aside. He is the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, who has also failed to do anything of significance, in my estimation, since November of 2014, when Republicans swept to almost unprecedented levels in the United States Congress. Now saying, well, we need to have the White House too. Really? You're so ineffectual and so incapable of getting things done that now you demand the presidency as well. Let me tell you something, boys and girls. You have power. You are Congress. Unless you continue to let that power go to the executive branch, which you've done for pretty much the majority of your time there. It's time for Congress to step up. It would be good for the country for Mitch McConnell to go. He won't, but it would be good if he did. But here's what it has done. It has changed the focus of the 2016 election, giving us something else to talk about. So here's some good things that have happened for the Republicans, setting the table properly for them. First of all, people are tired of Barack Obama. People are kind of worn out with that. The next candidate on the Democratic side will not get the turnout from the African-American community that he did. It's just simple fact. People are worn out with Hillary Clinton if she becomes your nominee. The gay marriage debate, off the table. But that's gone. John Boehner now, for Republicans who stayed home because they're angry with the Republican Party, John Boehner off the table. So this is lining up as a real possibility for Republicans if they put out a candidate that is electable. If they put out a candidate that can bring the party together, it's turning out to be a real possibility for Republicans to marshal their support, bring it all together, and deliver the White House. Now, having said all of that, the person inheriting the White House in January of 2017 will inherit a national debt north of $20 trillion, a military that is beat up and depleted, an economy that is put together with smoke, mirrors, and duct tape. Real problems. And we'll need real credible leadership to solve those problems. It's 14 after on a Monday. I'm Steve Gruber.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
All right, welcome to it. It's 18 after the hour. You know, my next guest is in a bit of trouble with Ivy, and you don't want to upset my executive producer because she pointed out to me that my next guest here, our TV expert, failed to point out last week that The Voice was back, and she missed Monday night as a result of her not realizing The Voice was on until Tuesday, and therefore she's very upset. Mike Hughes, welcome back to the program.
Hey, I wanted to mention to you that The Voice is back this week.
Well done.
Yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right. Sometimes a show so much dominates that you just take that for granted. And yeah, The Voice is back, and it's big, and it's on Monday and Tuesday. It's getting big ratings again. It's got the usual people on there. So, hey, you can watch it tonight if you want to, but there's just so much else to watch that you're just tempted to say, oh, let's leave the auditions go for a while and watch something else. For instance, as much as people like The Voice, which is 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock on Mondays, and at first on Tuesdays, too, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock on NBC. You know, The Big Bang Theory is still the best show on TV, and that's temporarily at 8 o'clock on Mondays, too. So what are you going to do? I guess we're going to have to start taping everything, right?
Well, just everything, except that, you jam that thing full, and then, my kid fills it with, what is that one show? I'll have to think about that. There's a show on there that she got it all packed with. It is a great show. Hacking the Machine or something like that, where these two guys like break down stuff scientifically, different things. I'm going to get back to them. That's a really cool show.
Okay, I got to watch that one too, which I haven't seen. Yeah. But your favorite show finally comes back
thankfully
Thursday. The Blacklist.
Yeah.
And it's 9 o'clock on Thursday, and I've seen the first episode, and it is a really good one, really strong. I mean, the Blacklist is always strong, but it is starting absolutely at hyperspeed here because, Elizabeth was framed for mass murders and so forth. Everybody in the world is trying to catch her. The police, the FBI, everybody's chasing after her. She's got one guy, Red, is the one guy who's trying to realizes she couldn't possibly really have done it. He's trying to figure out a way to get her out of New York City or Washington, D.C., wherever they are right now. It's just a tremendously fast-paced, hyper episode. Yes, there are points in the episode Thursday where you say, oh, come on, that couldn't really happen. But that's always true of the Blacklist. It makes you believe, and it's hyper speed. You're definitely going to want to watch it on Thursday. And also, it'll leave things hanging, too. So you'll definitely be back the next week, too.
Well, that's great. That's what we need.
Yeah. And that's what's interesting is how a returning show can be bigger than the shows back. So you mentioned The Voice. Obviously, it's bigger than the new shows. I say The Big Bang Theory is. But there's still new shows, too. The Daily Show. Here's a show that 11 times has been named the best variety show on TV. Finally has its new host tonight at 11 o'clock, Trevor Noah. I can't tell you much about the guy other than I saw his stand-up comedy routine. He's brilliant. We'll see how he is at the Daily Show. I can't tell you, but I'm looking forward to it. 11 o'clock tonight on Comedy Central.
No, that'd be great.
Yeah. And then then there's a couple of pretty good comedies too. On Tuesday night, I have said nothing good about Fox so far this year. Fox had a terrible week last week, but Tuesday night they've got these two good comedies called Grandfathered and The Grinder, and they're both good comedies. So I would catch those. I'd catch Code Black on Wednesday. It's just this is the second week of the season, but it's a pretty good week.
Why are you so down on Fox? What did Fox do?
Well, Fox just had a bad first week. Rosewood was a stupid show. They had the Scream Queens, which should have been really good, and it just was off. Minority Report was so-so. It's just the first three shows were not that good. And ordinarily Fox has done a lot of good things, so I was discouraged. But here comes these two shows Tuesday night, which are just great concepts. Grandfathered is John Stamos comes up, and he learns at the same time that he's a father and he's a grandfather. That's a pretty good double
at
show
the same
for one
time.
Day.
Bam.
Yeah, boom. Yeah. It's a good show. It's well cast. That's at 8 o'clock. Then comes 8:30. Here's Rob Lowe, who plays a guy who's an actor who plays a lawyer on TV. His show is canceled. He comes home to a real-life law office that his father and his brother are running, and all of a sudden he figures, hey, I've played a lawyer so often, I can be one. And so he steps into the courtroom and tries to help out in the law cases. It's just a perfect concept for a show, and Lowe is ideal for it. Fred Savage is great as his brother. William Devane is his father. So those two shows, 8 o'clock and 8:30 on Tuesday night, I'd definitely watch. And hey, then we won't be mad at Fox anymore.
Well, there you go. And Fox is off hook. Okay, give me besides The Voice and Blacklist, give me a must-see this week.
Okay, try this one. The Code Black, try it at Wednesday night at 10 o'clock. It's just a really good hospital show. The guy who runs it is based on a documentary about a Los Angeles hospital. The doctor who made the documentary knows what he's talking about. It's just a solid, sharp hospital show. 10 o'clock Wednesday night on CBS.
All right, Mike Hughes, always a pleasure, my friend.
Okay, have a good time, and remember The Voice.
There you don't forget The Voice. Thank you, Mike. Good Lord. 24 after on this Monday. No, I mean, Ivy's like Tuesday. Like, The Voice is on. I'm like, what? And she's like, well, why did Mike Hughes not tell us this? See, I mean, people rely on this program. Even the people that make this program rely on this program to get the information they need. And if I didn't mention this yet today, I should have. Michigan, University of Michigan football team, is now ranked for the first time since early in the 2013 football season. After their domination of Brigham Young, after they crushed BYU, Michigan now ranked 22nd. BYU was 22nd. Now it's Michigan's turn at 3-1. And that's probably okay. I don't know if they're that good a football team, but they had some great plays against BYU. And you know what? They've earned their place in the top 25. And so it gets more interesting. Ohio State remains number 1. Michigan State remains number 2. But Michigan on the board at number 22. I mean, the BYU game, make no mistake, was the first really meaningful win in Michigan in some time. They had gone something like 1-9 against ranked opponents over the last 3 years. So beating a ranked opponent, first signature win of the Jim Harbaugh era, gets the Wolverines up at number 22. So a big fall setting up. Michigan, Michigan State, and Ohio State all ranked and all looking for each other's number. 25 after on the Steve Gruber Show.
Very superstitious. Writings on the wall.
Welcome to the Steve Gruber Show. Big news on Friday. Big news on Friday as House Speaker John Boehner announces, to the shock of a lot of folks, that he is going to resign and step down at the end of October. And it's a conversation that I've had with various members of Congress from the Michigan delegation anyway, because John Boehner increasingly becoming the focus of angst from conservatives, from Tea Partiers, from folks who just don't think that he is leading the Republican Party in an effective way. And, I'm not going to kid you. I've been one of the strong critics of John Boehner. I've been a person who says John Boehner needs to do more, him and Mitch McConnell. But I was just as surprised as everyone when I heard the announcement on Friday that he'd be stepping down. Now, having said that, I think it's a good opportunity for some fresh leadership. But I also give John Boehner credit for having the courage to actually step down. Now, think about that. What kind of courage does it take to say, you know what? I'm going to walk away from this really big job, this really big deal, because I think it's best for everyone, including my country. Joining me now, Congressman Bill Huizenga from West Michigan to talk more about it. And Congressman, welcome back to the program.
Hey, Steve, good being with you. And, if I could just amplify that a little bit about, you used the word courage or the foresight. Here's something you learn after being in public office for a while, and I think John Boehner has learned this as well. We are merely cogs in the constitutional machine of government, and this, and you and I have talked about some of the faults of Boehner and some of the criticisms of him. But he is a guy that understands that it was not about him. It was about, in his mind, the institution and the institution of the speaker, and about trying to get some things done. And we might not have agreed with some of the direction or certainly some of the tactics. He is somebody that was out there doing what he thought was the best thing for the country. And my complaint to him, and you and I have talked about this as well, and this is not anything I haven't told him personally to him, is I felt he needed to get out there to communicate better, communicate the vision and the plan and the direction, and that was something that I think was a weakness of his ability to do that. But here's a guy that banned earmarks. That's huge. We've got some entitlement reform that's going to save upwards of $3 trillion over the next 20 years. That's significant. So he certainly has some accomplishments that he can point to at the end of the day as well.
But clearly a lot of heat, and and I've pressed you on this in recent discussions that you and I have had here right in this program, because here's the thing, like or hate Harry Reid, and I don't particularly care for Harry Reid. The one thing about Harry Reid that you could not take away from him from a political point of view as a politician, Harry Reid was good at getting his message out each and every day. He could get his message out each and every day. He would pound it. He still does. You don't see that from Mitch McConnell. You don't see that from John Boehner. And so you just enumerated some things that have happened here and some positive things that have happened with John Boehner in charge. But having said that, nobody knows about these things very often because he's not very good. I mean, can Republicans afford a PR firm?
Yeah, well, and that is something that I'm looking for in who is going to be our next speaker. Who's got a plan and the ability to communicate that plan? I think that's very important. And look, we communicate differently now here in the United States. And apparently, I wasn't planning on this, but apparently I was one of the first ones to tweet out the news that Boehner announced to us that he wasn't going to run again. And
clearly, having heard that
earlier today, say, well, why did you choose to tweet that out? It's like, seriously? Okay, because that's how people communicate now.
Well, right, but here's a really important. Right? Let me make an important note there. You clearly need to be following me on Twitter so that I would have gotten that same information. See, so we're a little out of sync there, Bill.
We must have been. That's we'll make sure now. Is that you following me or me following you? Well, let's make a pledge.
Either way,
we are following each other. So
Mutual Admiration Society. We'll get that figured out. All right. So going forward.
That's right.
This is, I think this is a sets the table for the Republicans to have a big opportunity because it takes one of the major complaints of those that have buyer's remorse, if you will, from last November that aren't satisfied that Republicans are doing as promised. This is an opportunity for the Republicans to have a new standard bearer when it comes to the United States Congress. Somebody like, I'm going to guess, Kevin McCarthy of California. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Kevin is probably the leading candidate at this point, and I think one of two things will happen: either he'll wrap this up in pretty short order, or it will be a long, drawn-out thing, and we won't know till the very end. But Kevin does have that ability, and he was a guy that worked with Paul Ryan and Eric Cantor on the Young Guns program. In 2010, actually 08 and 09, right after that 08 election, he'd been a leader in the California legislature. But there's some others names that have been thrown around: Paul Ryan, Jeb Henschling, a few others. But look, this is a tough job on a family, not just an individual. It's tough on a family structure, and I know that is influencing and affecting some of those folks' decisions about whether they're going to run or not. So,
sure.
I think it'll probably, clearly Kevin is a front runner in this, though.
And I guess we'll keep an eye on that. But, you look back over my lifetime, Tip O'Neill was an effective Speaker of the House that carried his message, in constant rivalry with Ronald Reagan, most notably. Newt Gingrich, an effective Speaker of the House that got him their plans through. What we need. We don't need more excuses. We need results, Bill. I mean, Congressman, That's where we need to be. We need to get results.
Yep, I wholeheartedly agree. And at the same time, I think a fair criticism has been we haven't given enough opportunity for the American people to evaluate the differences between us and the Obama administration, or us and Harry Reid. Easier to do in the House of Representatives. We've passed 300 and some odd bills at this point. Only 90 of those have been taken up in the Senate. So I mean, it's almost a third, if not even a quarter, of what the productivity that we've done. But that doesn't matter to people. They want to see some results. But what we need to do is, at a minimum, get some of these things on the president's desk and force him to make a decision whether he's going to.
Well, that's what was supposed to happen. Remember,
veto it or take it.
Right, that was what was supposed to happen. Remember, we're going to force the president to take a stand on these. We're going to force Democrats to take a stand on these, and then and suddenly nothing happened.
Yeah.
So suddenly nothing happened is the point, and that's where the frustration comes in for a lot of us. And I know that you're up there with your sleeves rolled up and going to work now. Boehner apparently had some spiritual input from the Pope, and he was affected by that and made his decision and told his wife and made the decision. But apparently this is something he has been considering for some time. In fact, you mentioned Eric Cantor. When Eric Cantor lost that upset in the primary in 2014, apparently John Boehner was considering stepping down then, but decided to carry on a bit longer because of that unexpected occurrence. So I suppose we'll have to sit here and see what happens. Bill, I appreciate you coming on the show. It's Congressman Bill Huizenga, and we greatly appreciate it. We've got to run, but we'll talk more about it very soon, my friend.
Sounds great. Thanks, Steve.
Genuine Michigan common sense on display every day.
All right, welcome back to it. It's 45 after on a Monday edition here of the Steve Gruber Show. Brought to you in part by Total Firearms. TotalFirearmsGunShop.com, the place to find everything you're looking for, new, used, the best prices possible. These are the guys that are all over the state doing the gun and knife shows, so they have the best selection, obviously, because they have the most volume, and therefore they can find what you're looking for. Maybe it's new, used, collectible, antique, whatever. And the best advice, too, by the way. TotalFirearmsGunShop.com, the place to go. Tell them Steve sent you. Anything there, Alex? All right, then. Let's shift gears a little bit. I saw this video. You got to go online to see this video. Out of Centerline. A man's fear of spiders. Now, this reminds me of my father. Didn't have a fear of spiders per se, but stinging insects. Flying insects, he'd roll the car rather than let one bee occupy, the cabin area. Oh, I saw him swat and get out of control, and he'd jump out of a moving vehicle at 80 miles an hour if there's a bee in the car, I think. Well, similar to that, in Centerline, a man's fear of spiders nearly caused him to set a Metro Detroit gas station on fire altogether. Instead, he set his car and the gas pump on fire, for real. Fox 2 had this report. You should go look at it. Taryn Asher was the reporter. You should go look at this because it was really quite something. The man saw a spider on his car's gas tank while he was at the gas station in Centerline. So what did he do? He did what any, clear-thinking person would do. He took out his lighter and tried to set it on fire right where he had taken the gas cap off. Hey, guess what? Gas burns. Fa-foom. Had the big woof moment, that moment you hear. That moment you hear that big rush of air when you're lighting something on fire. I've been there, but this time it was his car and the gas pump. Luckily, the lady inside hit the emergency shutoff for the flow on the gas, so it stopped it there. He was able to move his car. The pump was pretty much burned up. His car had almost no damage, however, but he grabbed the fire extinguisher, put it out. But yeah, he set the gas station on fire because he tried to light the spider on fire when the gas cap was off. I can't make that up. Crazy, isn't it? And here's one that I took notice of this because it's a sad story because the guy died. But let's start with the premise of the story. This is from Belmont on the west side. Relatives of an 85-year-old Belmont man killed in a zip line fall. You heard me right. In a zip line fall. I was trying to make sense of the accident and tragic loss. James McNeil died last Thursday after falling about 25 feet from the zip line. He was at Bayshore Camp in Sebring Township, northeast of Bay City, when something apparently went wrong with a harness, according to a preliminary police investigation. The investigation, along with witness statements and video, indicate that the zip line harness attached to McNeil came unfastened somehow, causing him to fall and suffer fatal injuries. That, according to the Huron County Sheriff's Office. McNeil's son-in-law, Brian Dupuy, describing McNeil as a very happy, loving, caring man who lived life to the fullest. I would say he was living life to the fullest. And I'm sorry that the gentleman lost his life. But by God, he was 85 years old on a zip line. So I tip my hat to that guy, because I want to be that guy. I want to be the guy at 85 on a zip line with my grandkids, don't you? I mean, come on. Now, there's something to aspire to. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying there's something to aspire to. There's something to look up to and say, hey, I'm all right with that. I'm good with that. Let's see. Looks like it's going to cost us something like $13 billion. $13 billion to fix water problems here in the state. The problems in Flint with lead in the water and elevated lead levels in children, especially babies and so forth, has garnered the attention of the entire state. Well, now Michigan's water systems could face $13 billion in maintenance costs over the next few years. This estimate comes from the Environmental Protection Agency. The EPA, but of course, it's the same EPA that's helping us out by getting rid of power plants in Michigan where we're going to face blackouts next summer. It's a acute problem, most concentrated in places like Detroit. It's now transferring its water system to the newly created Great Lakes Water Authority, in part to raise money for infrastructure. The 40-year deal pays the city $50 million per year and allows Detroit to maintain ownership of a system that has 3,000 miles of pipes, 2,000 main breaks a year. 2,000 water main breaks every year. Because the pipes in the ground are over 100 years old. 100 years old. You see, you have to fix these things. Unfortunately, Detroit has not done a preventative maintenance job very well. The Great Lakes Water Authority expects to spend nearly $3 billion over the next 20 years on capital improvements, according to a nearly completed master plan that's atop a $400 million per year. On top of the $400 million per year it spends to operate the water system currently. And this is all, and this is true in a lot of the older and aging cities, not just here in Michigan, but around the country. You got water systems that are 100 years old or more. Well, a couple of things. First of all, a lot of those pipes are old pipes, so you end up with a lead problem like we've discussed in Flint. At least that's a contributing factor. Plus, you have breaks on a regular basis because they're weakened. They are compromised systems. And instead of fixing those things, we spend 62% of our federal budget now on entitlement programs. And anytime you call for reform, well, you're called names and mocked and said you're hateful and an extremist. An extremist? I think fresh running water is a pretty mainstream position, don't you? Just throwing it out there. 52 after. We'll get to some final thoughts right after this.